Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Well, we officially now have a new voice of the New York Yankees, and that will be Dave Sims, officially announced as the replacement for John Sterling. So we're going to give you the backdrop and the background on Sims. You know, it does have some WFAN history there, so maybe that's probably what tipped the scales for him, but I'll kind of get into the whole thing and kind of my theory on why they went with him and not some of the other names that Suzyn's been working with in the 2024 season. Plus the Yankees being a little charitable, well, not totally, they are getting compensated, but going to sort of loan out Steinbrenner Field to the Tampa Bay Rays for the 2025 season. As you may recall, with the devastating hurricanes about a month or so ago, just destroyed Tropicana Field, specifically the roof there, so they needed a place to play, and of course the Yankees, nearby in the Tampa complex, kind of made sense. So we'll kind of give you the background on all that situation, and some more awards being handed out. Most recent YouTube episode kind of mentioned that some of the Yankee awards and nominations that were out there. Obviously we're still waiting on the MVP one, but it looks like the Hank Aaron Award going to Aaron Judge, in the American League. To no surprise, he kind of had a good season in 2024 if you look at the numbers there, so not shocking, but we'll look into that as well. Again, we still wait for the MVP final announcement, but nevertheless, it's usually a good sign when you get the Hank Aaron Award. You're usually going to be the MVP. So some cool stuff to catch you up on this episode. So before we get started, make sure wherever you're listening right now, if you haven't done it yet, subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcast. Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, subscribe. And as I mentioned before, there is a YouTube version of the show. So right after, go to YouTube, search for Section 420 Talkin Yankees, subscribe there as well. Again, just posted the most recent episode a couple of days ago on YouTube. I'm going to check it out. Just kind of give me my justification on why I felt that, at least Boone deserved another year to come back as the Yankee manager for 2025. So you want to catch that. So going back, it started the season, it was kind of weird with John Sterling, kind of a month into the season, he decided basically, I just don't want to do this anymore, which was just kind of weird. I mean, you kind of had the decision in the winter. You could have maybe decided on spring training, but I guess a couple weeks into the season, you decided I had enough and hung it up there. And of course, from there, Suzyn had to be teamed up with, we saw some games with Justin Schachtel, who got the majority of the games. And of course, we saw some Iman Babari as there as well. And the two of them, I guess it really didn't gel too well. I mean, you could just, if you listen to some of the radio broadcasts, she felt a little bit more comfortable with Justin. Iman Babari, again, a friend of the show. I had him on the show twice, interviewed him. I just felt with him, there was a bit of an age difference. I mean, the guy's in his maybe middle 20s at this point. Suzyn obviously in her early 70s. And I just think the 50-year gap there was just kind of, if you're listening on the radio, it's not there, but you just kind of know there is an age difference. And you just heard it through some of the broadcasts. She would just kind of be very bossy with him. He would make a point, then she would almost counterpoint it right away. It's just, I would almost say it's almost a level of disrespect sometimes. I kind of just got the gist of it. I'm not going to say I listen to every minute of every broadcast, but just from the times there, she seemed a little combative towards him. And I think it was just kind of like, well, who's this young guy? I'm this and they put this young 20-year-old with me. And I just felt that it just didn't feel right there. So you kind of felt some of that bad vibes in the booth. I think she liked Justin Schachtel a little bit more just because he was a little bit older, but still the chemistry wasn't there. So they made the announcement that Dave Sims will now be the new play-by-play announcer for the Yankee radio broadcast with Suzyn Waldman. And this is really not too big of a shocker. Even during the season, his name was thrown in there as a rumor. I'm not even sure if I mentioned it here, not on the podcast or on the YouTube show there, just because it was kind of, until it happens, then we'll talk about it. But nevertheless, it did happen. Now, I'll just give you a quick background. Now, he's a Philadelphia native, but he did work at the Fan between 1989 to 93. He had a midday show. Now, it's probably I was about 10 to 11 years old at the time, so I totally don't remember that. But I guess he does have a history with the Fan. But the last 18 seasons, he's been the play-by-play man for the Seattle Mariners. That's going back to the 2007 season. But mainly, I think the reason they selected him was the age. He's 71 years old, and I think this is a better fit with Suzyn, who's, again, she's also in her early 70s there. So I think it's a better fit for her. I just think the age gap, the other two, is just kind of weird. It's they're like the future, and you still have this old voice still left over from the team. And I think it was just a bad mix and a bad vibe. And I don't even think Suzyn really liked either of them. I think she'd much rather work with Dave Sims, again, who's she knows about, because again, Suzyn Waldman has been at the Fan since the late 80s as well. So she kind of knows him already. And again, the two of them just kind of bounce around baseball for several decades now. I just think she was much more comfortable working with him, and I just think it'll be a better fit. Now, if it was going to be Dave Sims, of course, I think Ricky Ricardo, I think that's probably would have been her number 2 choice, or maybe her number 1 choice. The games Ricky Ricardo also did, forgot to mention that before. That chemistry was good there, and I would have been okay if they went with Ricky Ricardo. And frankly, since Ricardo's been with the Yankees, more recently, I would have been okay if they made that move. But I guess Maybe for the Spanish broadcast, they didn't want to lose Ricky on that. I don't know. I mean, you could have gotten someone else and just put Ricky for the English broadcast, as you would say there. But I guess for whatever reason, they just wanted to keep him there for the Spanish broadcast version and bring in someone new to do the play-by-play with Suzyn on that one. So, again, I'm okay with it. I never really heard of this guy even before the season, so I can't say I know much about him. But he did a social media post, and, you could kind of see why, he could be a good play-by-play guy. Just kind of a stern, steady voice there. You probably wouldn't even know he was 71 the same way you probably wouldn't even know John Sterling when he was in his 80s when you're listening to him, just because, this didn't come after it. So he has a good radio voice, and again, I'm sure he's been around for a while. He knows the game, so I'm sure he's fine. But I think a lot of it had to do with the age. I just think they wanted someone an age a little closer to Suzyn. It's probably a better fit for her and a better fit for the broadcast. And you could just tell, again, there was a little bit of bitterness and just awkwardness when she was working with the younger guys, as I mentioned before there. So that is that. And in the other news with the Yankees, I guess they're loaning out or renting out Steinbrenner Field to the Tampa Bay Rays. Obviously, they were left out of field with the damage done with the hurricane. It kind of makes sense because at first I figured, well, why don't they just use their own spring training facility? You could do that. But difference is that Steinbrenner Field isn't your typical, minor league complex, of course, because you have so many Yankee fans that come around all over the country, maybe around the world, to visit the Yankees during spring training. So it's a bigger than usual minor league camp. Therefore, it can accommodate what you would call even a lousy crowd at a Tampa game. And of all the choices they had, Steinbrenner Field has the biggest capacity, has 11,026 seats. That's what it really was. They have trouble drawing fans at the ballpark, but still, you at least got to be able to hold a minimum of 10,000 fans, if possible. You can't have a field that can seat 4,000 people, where probably most of your minor league ballparks are in that range. So Steinbrenner Field is unique in that way that, yeah, it's a minor league park, but since it's the New York Yankees and all the fanfare and all the money and everything else, it's more than a typical facility, and they have everything else, the parking lot accommodations, the training facility, the batting cages, and all the other stuff, the training stuff like that. It's all top-notch because it's the New York Yankees, so even though it's a minor league complex, it's major league level type stuff that you probably can't get in any other organization's spring training facility there. So that's ultimately why they went with that. Now, they were also considering the Phillies facility, but I guess whatever reason, they just decided to go with the Yankees. Then again, this is not all charity. The Yankees are going to be compensated $15 million for that. Some of it coming from the Rays organization itself, but others coming from insurance. I guess the insurance taken out from the Tropicana Field damage, I guess they also do that to compensate the Yankees. Now, it looks like a lot of local officials aren't too happy. Steinbrenner Field is only a half hour away from Tropicana Field, so for fans and players that are traveling, it's not too crazy to go to Steinbrenner Field, but it looks like some of the local officials weren't too happy. This is in Pinella County, where Steinbrenner Field is. They wanted it in Dundon County. That's basically where the Toronto Blue Jays have their spring trade facility. The local officials, with politics, they wanted, the fans and everyone else to have to come there to spend money and all that stuff there. So a little politicking back and forth. So it seems like the local officials not too happy with the decision by the Rays. But again, the Rays got to look at it from their standpoint. We need a facility that could house our fans. Again, the Rays don't really draw more than 10,000 people to their games. We've all seen that. But nevertheless, in case they do come, you got to have enough seats for everybody there. So that, and for your players, you want them to have, this the top-notch facilities you can for training and all the stuff that, the New York Yankee organization could offer this with all the money they have and everything else. Again, Steinbrenner Field isn't your typical minor league ballpark, so that's why that decision was made there. And again, the Yankees get compensated for $15 million, which is more money than the Rays are spending on any individual player there, so go figure that one out. But some of that money is coming from the Tropicana Field insurance, so it's not all coming out of the Rays' pocket. And again, the last piece of news I mentioned, awards being announced, as obviously Gold Gloves will be announced. We're still waiting on, we had the Luis Hill Rookie of the Year with Baseball Digest, but we're waiting for Major League Baseball to announce the official Rookies of the Year, and of course we're also waiting for the MVPs, but announced in both the American and National League, the Hank Aaron Award going to Aaron Judge in the American League, and to no surprise, Ohtani in the National League. So those will be your two winners. Now, the reason why it's important that since they started giving out this award in 1999, I guess of the 50 players total that have received this award, 26 out of the 50 would go on to be the MVP. So usually when you get the Hank Aaron Award, and again, the award's based on the best offensive player in both the American League and the National League, respectively there. So again, usually when you have the best offensive numbers, generally, more often than not, you're going to be selected as the MVP. And the Judge last won the award in 2022 where he got the MVP. And then last year, of course, Ohtani got it in 2023. Again, they're both of them probably going to be shoo-ins for the 2024 MVP. So we'll just wait and see until that official word comes down. So that's the episode. The Yankees have a new voice of the Yankees. That's Dave Sims. We'll see how he gets along. I'm sure he's fine, but I think a lot of it had to do with his age, 71, and just being more comparable with Suzyn Waldman, who's about the same age there. And I think that's be a better fit versus her, dealing with some young whippersnappers. So hopefully that all works out there. And of course, the Yankees being charitable, loaning out their park for the 2025 season for the Tampa Bay Rays until they find their new ballpark. It seems like 2026 they should be back in Tropicana Field, and they're looking at I think it was like 28, 29, getting an entirely new facility somewhere, whether it's in Tampa or St. Pete or whatnot there. Because obviously, again, Tropicana Field, maybe they'll make it look pretty again. I don't know, maybe a little bit a blessing in disguise, because obviously that's one of the ugliest ballparks in all of Major League Baseball. We'll catch you next time.